Have you ever heard of children who never saw their father's face, who were handed a rope-tied box, a worn coat, and placed on a train, told, "This is your new home now"? These stories aren't written in books. They aren't taught in schools. We're bringing back the voices that were once silenced. Megaphones, so don't just subscribe to this channel, embrace it, because every video here is a heartbeat of a childhood forgotten. A cracked bell rang out over the city depot, its echo swallowed by the low fog creeping along the cobblestones. The morning was damp and gray, the sky hung heavy like an unspoken warning. Children stood in line, too quiet for their number, too still for their age. Their coats were threadbare, shoes mismatched, faces hollow from waiting. Among them stood a girl in a green wool coat, too large for her frame, the hem brushing against her shins. One silver button glinted against the drabness around her. Her name was May Ellen, age 9. She was smiling. In her right hand, she held a folded slip of paper. The ink had begun to smudge, but three things remained clear: a name, a town, and the word promise. She ran her thumb along the edge of the paper, like it might keep her steady. A missionary worker, cheeks ruddy from the cold, leaned over and tugged May's scarf tight around her neck. "God's plan," the woman murmured. "You're part of it now." May didn't answer. Her eyes drifted beyond the station gate to where a woman stood, her face thin, eyes sunken, hands clasped in silent, desperate prayer. Their gazes met. May lifted her hand and waved. It was small, slow, and brave. The woman's lips trembled, but she didn't wave back. She didn't have the strength. The conductor barked orders. Names were called. Children filed forward like whispers. May turned once more to the gate before stepping onto the train. She didn't look back again. The interior of the orphan train was dim, wooden, and breathing with the sounds of shifting feet and soft weeping. The smell was sharp, iron oil, and old fabric. The windows were fogged from the inside, breath smudged and sticky. May found a seat beside a smaller girl with tangled curls and bruised knuckles. Ruthie, age 7, held a rag doll missing one button eye and all of its stuffing, her arms wrapped around it like armor. May settled in without a word, then began to hum, not loud, just enough to thread the silence with something that might have been a lullaby once. Ruthie leaned toward her until their shoulders touched. The doll's broken arm hung over May's lap. The train hissed and lurched. May gripped the edge of the bench. Outside, the woman at the gate clutched her chest and sank to her knees. No one noticed. The door at the end of the car creaked open. A tall man stepped in. He wore a dark wool coat buttoned to his throat, gloves smooth as ink, and a stiff black hat. Papers peeked from his breast pocket, creased and worn. His boots thudded with purpose as he walked the aisle without pausing or looking at any of the children. May watched him pass. Her humming stopped. Ruthie's hand found hers and held it tight. The train shuddered again. Then it began to move in earnest. Through the dirty glass, the city faded. The outlines of warehouses, smokestacks, and hungry-eyed faces melted into gray. Steam rose and swallowed everything. May pressed her forehead to the window. She smiled. The Pennsylvania hills rolled past in silhouette, dark folds beneath a moon too thin to matter. The train groaned as it wound westward, its windows glinting like tired eyes. Inside, the children lay curled in twos and threes on the narrow benches, legs tucked beneath them, coats pulled over shoulders. The air was warm from their breath, sour with sleep and soot. May did not sleep. She pressed her face to the cold glass, watching the stars flicker through bare tree limbs. She whispered her name to them, just once, like a question. May Ellen. Her voice floated into the window pane and disappeared. Across the aisle, Mrs. Gorley sat stiff in her seat, reading by a dim oil lamp. The Bible in her lap trembled with the train's motion. Her mouth moved, but the words had no weight. Scripture felt hollow out here. May didn't listen. Ruthie shifted beside her, whimpering once, then burrowed deeper into her coat. Her doll, the one with the missing button eye, peeked out from beneath the hem. May closed her eyes for just a moment, long enough to feel the weight of exhaustion settle over her like dust. A jolt woke her. The train had stopped. The whistle screamed, long and sharp. May sat up, blinking. Ruthie was gone. The bench beside her was empty, still warm. The doll lay where it had fallen, face down, one stitched arm reaching toward her. May looked up and down the car. The other children still slept. Mrs. Gorley was slumped over, mouth open, lamp still burning. May whispered her name, then louder. No response. Another creak. A door at the far end of the car cracked open. The man in the dark coat stood in the frame. He didn't speak, just waited. May froze. Her breath caught in her throat, heart thudding like hooves against the floorboards. He raised a gloved hand and motioned. She didn't move. He tilted his head, not impatient, not angry, expectant. May rose. Her legs shook. She stepped carefully over the doll and into the aisle, glancing once more at Mrs. Gorley. Still no movement. The man turned and disappeared down the corridor. May followed. They passed through one car, then another, each darker than the last. No lights, no voices, just the wind clawing against the metal skin of the train. Finally, he pushed open a heavy door. Cold air rushed in. The car beyond was unlit but not empty. Wooden crates were stacked haphazardly along the walls. A single gas lamp flickered near the back, its flame fighting to live. The man walked to the center of the room and crouched. He looked at her, then reached into his coat and pulled out a flask. He said something low, slurred. The words didn't fit together. May didn't understand. He offered her the flask. She shook her head. He laughed. It was quiet and wrong, like someone dragging a shovel through gravel. It made her chest tighten. May stepped back. He rose. She opened her mouth to speak, maybe to ask for Ruthie, maybe to say her own name again, but no sound came out. Nothing. Her voice was gone. She tried again. Her lips moved. Her throat strained. Silence. The lamp flickered again. She screamed, not with sound, but with her hands, her eyes, her whole face. The man didn't flinch. He just watched. Behind her, the door slammed shut. A bolt scraped into place. She ran to it, beat her fists against the frame, kicked, pounded. No one came. The train jolted to life. The car rattled. The crates trembled. The lamp swung dangerously. May sank to the floor, knees scraped, lungs burning with the scream she could no longer make. All night, the train thundered westward through Black Hills. By morning, the sun broke across a field of frost and barren trees. The children stirred in their sleep. May sat alone, back in her seat, hands in her lap. Ruthie's doll lay beneath her bench. May stared out the window. Her eyes were blank. Her smile was gone. Her lips never moved again. The July sun clung to the edge of the sky, turning the prairie into a shimmering sheet of gold and dust. Heat waves danced above the dirt as if the land itself breathed. May stood still among a cluster of children on a makeshift platform, just a stretch of warped boards nailed together beside a leaning grain silo. Behind her, the orphan train hissed and sighed, steam rising in ghostly curls. Her new name tag read Marie, the letters blocky and wrong. The other children shifted, swayed. Some clutched small sacks of belongings or faded family photographs they still believed would matter. May had nothing, not even her real name now. Just the green coat with a single silver button, and the silence pressed deep in her chest. A heavy-set farmer's wife moved slowly down the line. Her bonnet cast a sharp shadow across her face, making her mouth a tight line. She wore gloves despite the heat. Flies buzzed around her hem. She stopped in front of May and frowned. "She's quiet, that one," said the adoption agent, a pale man with ink-stained cuffs. "Won't give you trouble. Doesn't speak at all, far as we know." The woman didn't reply. She reached forward and touched May's chin with 2 fingers, turning her face toward the light. May kept her eyes low. "A good mouth," the woman muttered. "Teeth strong." May stood like stone. Behind her, a boy was chosen. His name was called. A man with tobacco on his breath patted his back and led him away. Then another, and another. The line shrank. The sun dipped lower. The air grew still. May remained. Eventually, a wagon rolled up the hill, drawn by a limping horse. Its boards were bleached from years of sun, and it creaked with every shift in the wind. A man in red suspenders pulled the reins. His face was like cracked leather. Two older girls already sat in the back, their dresses faded to nearly the same shade as the wood. The farmer's wife turned to the man and nodded. "We'll take her." May did not protest. She climbed into the wagon, hoisting herself up without help. The bench was warm and splintered. Her legs dangled, boots not quite touching the floor. She looked out over the prairie one last time, but there was nothing to hold on to. She tried to hum, something soft, something that had lived in her once. No sound came. The girl beside her, maybe 15, leaned over without looking at her. "Don't try," she whispered. "They don't want songs." The wagon jolted forward. Dust rose behind them like smoke. The train was already gone. They passed fields of rusted plows, fences mended with rope, a weathered sign with no letters left. The sky stretched too wide, too blue. The farmhouse appeared suddenly, low and crooked against the horizon. A barn leaned to one side, like a broken tooth. The windmill above it turned slowly, groaning as if in pain. No one greeted them. No one smiled. That night, May was given a corner in the barn, just wide enough for a mat of straw. A trough of hog feed sat beside her. The smell was thick. The farmer's wife handed her a blanket without speaking. May lay down, pulling the blanket over her head like a second skin. In the dark, she saw the flash of a doll's missing eye. She saw Ruthie's curls. She saw her mother's hands behind the iron gate, trembling in prayer. She dreamed of the train, its whistle like a scream swallowed in snow. She woke before dawn. The barn was cold. Tears had dried on her cheeks in the night. She opened her mouth once. Still no voice. Not even a croak. Before the sky colored, before the rooster stirred, May was already awake. The prairie winds pushed against the boards of the barn, and the cold reached in like fingers. She moved without sound, always without sound, gathering eggs, milking the cow, carrying buckets heavier than her arms could bear. The farmer's wife called her girl. Not May. Never May. Just girl. It stuck like the dust in her throat. The name held no shape, no memory. She scrubbed the floors until her fingers blistered. Hauled slop. Chopped vegetables. She didn't cry. Not when the work broke her nails, or when the strap found her shoulders. Not when the farmer stared too long at the curve of her spine, while she reached for the top shelf. When a peddler came down the road with his cart of brushes and tinware, May was told to go out back. She crouched behind the chicken coop until the wagon left, hands over her ears, heart stiff in her chest. She began speaking to the animals. Not with words, with her hands. Tiny, careful gestures. A flick of the fingers for stay. A tap on the chest for friend. The calf with the crooked leg learned first. Then the barn cat, who always watched her from the rafters. At 13, blood appeared between her thighs. It came on the hay, in the barn, while she shoveled straw. She thought something inside her had broken. No one told her otherwise. She wrapped herself in rags and kept working. At 14, the oldest girl vanished. She had always stared past the horizon like it owed her something. One morning, her cot was empty. The farmer said nothing. The wife scrubbed the sheets with vinegar. May waited to be struck, or called a thief, or blamed. No one noticed. One spring afternoon, a woman arrived on horseback with a satchel and a bright yellow ribbon in her hair. The new schoolteacher. She stepped off the porch in lace-up boots and asked, gently, if she could speak with a quiet one. May stood with her hands behind her back. The teacher offered her a pencil and paper. "Can you write?" she asked. May took the pencil and didn't answer. That night, she drew. Not words, not quite. Just shapes. A long black train. A small girl. A coat with one shining silver button. The eyes of someone behind a gate. The next morning, the schoolteacher was gone. But she left behind a small leather-bound notebook. No name. Just pages waiting. May hid it beneath the loose floorboard in the barn, near the feed sack. She opened it only at night, after the lanterns went out. She filled it with trains, with stars, with faces she remembered but never knew. At 17, she walked 5 miles to the edge of town in her only dress, a gray thing, patched at the knees. The church bell rang long before she reached it, and the hymns had already begun. She stood in the back, not sitting, not kneeling. The congregation sang. May moved her lips. No sound came. An old woman, stooped and wrapped in a shawl, noticed her. After the final hymn, she shuffled back and took May's hand in both of hers. You still hear it, don't you? The woman whispered. May nodded. That was all. At 18, the farmer died with a cough that rattled for days. The land, the barn, the house, all listed under the wife's name. May was not mentioned. No thanks. No goodbye. That night, May packed her coat and her notebook. The floorboard creaked as she lifted it for the last time. She didn't bother with food. Before the sun touched the grass, she walked down the path, past the dead cottonwood, past the field of broken plows. Behind her, no doors opened. Somewhere far off, a train whistled, thin and distant, like a memory. May turned toward it. She walked east.